After years of back and forth with Oscar, I finally decided to give up. I stopped hysterically shouting about divorce to force him to come back to me. I stopped monitoring his whereabouts every second of the day, annoying him into disgust. I stopped feeling heartbroken over his blatant favoritism toward his little secretary. I became tolerant, understanding, magnanimous. That time, when Oscar was slumped sideways on the couch, offering me a perfunctory apology and asking for reconciliation, my expression was calm. It's fine. But somehow, that was when he started feeling dissatisfied. Later, I calmly handed him the divorce agreement. His face darkened, brows knitting tightly, teeth clenched. You're fucking serious about this? Chapter 1. After 7 days of Cold War, Oscar was the first to lower his head. Seeing him in a black suit, drunk and sprawled on the couch, I was a little surprised. It wasn't even time to get off work. He had actually come home early. His long, well-defined fingers rested carelessly on the couch, the corners of his eyes tinged with an unnatural redness. When he looked up and saw me, his tone turned intimate. Wife, pour me a glass of water. I stayed silent for a moment and didn't move. Oscar froze briefly. He propped himself up, studying me with a searching gaze. Indeed, this time, I was too quiet. Before, I would have been jumping up and down, using every means possible to make life miserable for him and Anna. But now, I did nothing. No dozens of phone calls urging him to come back. No hysterical screaming and cursing. No relentless harassment at his company. He probably thought this time I was genuinely furious. His narrow eyes narrowed slightly, and he finally remembered to placate me. Still mad? Oscar reached out and hooked my hand with the habitual gentleness he used when coaxing people. All right. It's my fault. I shouldn't have embarrassed you. I shook off his hand. He frowned, but still forced himself to be patient. Don't be angry anymore. See, just released a new bag. It suits you. I'll buy it for you. Okay? A perfunctory response. A dull ache spread through my chest. But he seemed to misunderstand me, the corner of his lips lifting unconsciously into a smile. All right. You've achieved your goal. Stop sulking. Chapter 2. At 17, I never could have imagined Oscar treating me with such contempt and indifference. After all, back then, he had fought desperately to marry me. He was willing to give up his inheritance just to be with me. The boy he was, his face still youthful, but his gaze unwavering. Selena, I don't want their money. I don't want anything. I just want to be with you. I snapped back to reality. Oscar's smile faded slightly. If you keep making a fuss, it gets boring. That day was my fault. I shouldn't have let Anna show up. I promise it won't happen again. On Oscar's birthday banquet, his little secretary suddenly barged in. Her eyes were red, her expression stubborn as she stared at Oscar, who stood beside me. A silent confrontation. Oscar's hand, holding mine as we cut the cake, paused. The heart-shaped decorations on the peach-flavored cake I had specially chosen rolled off. Oscar glanced at her, then lowered his eyes, his expression blank, but I still caught the way his lips pressed together. The scene was ugly. Anna stood at the center of the venue, ignoring the surrounding whispers, simply crying. I just wanted to spend your birthday with you. Faster than Oscar's trembling gaze was my movement. I rushed forward and shoved her to the ground. Only then did Oscar finally move. He stepped forward with long strides, looking at me with restrained anger. In the end, he cast me an annoyed glance and carried Anna away with a dark face. Then, right in front of everyone, 2 security guards dragged me out. It was humiliating. Oscar's patience hit its limit. He clicked his tongue impatiently. I came back to my senses and met his eyes. It's fine. It's your birthday. Of course. You get to decide who can be there. Oscar was briefly stunned, clearly not expecting that reaction. He frowned, his expression darkening, his deep gaze studying me intently. He suspected this was just another one of my tantrum tactics. After all, the last time he went on a business trip with Anna, and conveniently took a vacation in Dolly before coming back, I had also said, "It's fine," only to turn around and loudly proclaim myself widowed. That day, I was hospitalized for gastroenteritis. When I was discharged, the hospital required a family member's signature. I'm an orphan. I only have one family member, a husband. when I calmly told the doctor, "I'm widowed." They looked mortified and didn't dare say a word. I generously said it was fine, but when I turned around, I saw Oscar rushing over, dusty and disheveled, his hair messed up by the wind, panic impossible to hide on his sharp, handsome face. When he heard what I said, his face instantly turned as black as coal. Chapter 3. Back then, Oscar should have had feelings for me. His expression was unpleasant. Yet he didn't say anything. He stepped forward and bent down to examine my pale face. His long, well-defined hand gripping my shoulder. His tone was stern, but the concern in it was undisguised. "Why didn't you call me?" But what he didn't know was that I had called. Anna answered. Now, whatever little love remained had probably been worn away by me as well. When his phone rang, he didn't ask any further questions. He merely swept me a glance. He glanced at the message on the screen. There was a faint smile in his eyes. A rare, genuinely sincere smile at home. I clenched the hand beneath me tightly, trying to ease the pain in my chest. Oscar put his coat back on and stood up. The peach blossom eyes that had been drunk moments ago gradually cleared. "I need to go out for a bit. Go to sleep first tonight. Don't wait for me." "Okay." I nodded obediently. No arguing, no making a scene, but Oscar seemed even more annoyed. He ran a hand through his hair, his tone confused and dissatisfied. "What's wrong with you?" After Anna appeared, I had kept a tight leash on Oscar. Whenever he went out at night, I would interrogate him thoroughly. He had always found that especially irritating. Now I walked over to the sofa and sat beside the spot where he had just been lying, changing the subject. "Oscar, let's get a divorce." Oscar's reaction was beyond my expectations. Almost the moment the words left my mouth, the laziness on his face vanished, replaced by a mocking smile. "Selena, even throwing a tantrum has its limits. I'll pretend I didn't hear this time. If you bring it up again, there won't be any turning back. Luxury cars, mansions, expensive jewelry, designer bags, once you leave me, no one else can give you those." The smile on my face faded. Oscar also realized his tone had been a bit harsh. He frowned and softened slightly. "That designer you like just released a new necklace. I'll buy it for you as an apology gift. All right? As for Anna, I'll remind her to avoid appearing in front of you as much as possible. Okay?" I lowered my eyes. "No." Chapter 4. Oscar didn't wait for my response. After leaving those words behind and fastening his cuffs, he hurried out. Anna had sent him a message, saying she wanted cake from the west side of the city. The next morning, I was shaken awake by Oscar, who had suddenly come home. His handsome yet gloomy face loomed close. What does this mean? I looked at the phone in front of me, confused. A financial news article about Oscar. As a newly risen business tycoon, Oscar attracted countless female fans with his unrestrained, aggressive, strikingly handsome looks. This report was no exception. The comments below were filled with female admirers. One comment read, "Mrs. Oscar is so lucky, rich and handsome husband. I'd wake up laughing even in my dreams." A reply underneath said, "Want this kind of luck? You can have it." It was me. I forgot to switch to my alt account. This was the account Oscar had registered for me years ago. Very quickly, someone dug up the fact that I was Oscar's wife. The comments section exploded, stacking up hundreds of replies. Speculation about marital trouble dominated the discussion. Oscar laughed in anger, practically grinding his teeth. "You're getting more and more reckless with what you do." Recently, Oscar's company was at a critical stage of transformation. My comment had brought him negative attention. Not particularly severe, but Oscar's gaze was dark and heavy. It was hard to tell whether it was because of the company's situation, or because that comment had offended him. Chapter 5. His gaze was dark and heavy as he stared at me. I had no choice but to accompany him in responding to this wave of public opinion. As soon as we arrived at the company, it was inevitable that I ran into Anna again. She looked at me, the anger in her eyes barely concealed. "Selena, can you have some sense of propriety? Do you know how much trouble you've caused Oscar? If you can't help him, could you at least stop dragging him down?" This time, I was stunned. The way she spoke, it sounded as if she were the lady of the house. Noticing the change in my expression, Oscar, who had been standing by silently, stepped in front of Anna without a word. His tall, straight figure shielded her completely, a full-on protective stance. He was afraid I might lay a hand on Anna again. How very considerate of him. My fingertips dug into my flesh as I tried my best to ignore the spasms tightening around my heart. I hated Anna. I had hated her since university. When I found out that Oscar was keeping her on the side, the pain I felt multiplied. Reporters came in with cameras and microphones raised. Oscar and I sat side by side on the leather sofa in the office. How did Mr. Oscar pursue his wife back then? The main purpose of this video was to reverse the rumors of marital discord, so the questions were deliberately guided toward memories of youthful campus romance. The reporter tried to dig up some sweet anecdotes, but Oscar got stuck. I curved my lips into a barely noticeable smile, lowered my eyes, my fingers curling slightly. He didn't remember anymore. Oscar's expression stiffened. In truth, it could hardly be called a pursuit at all. We grew up in the same orphanage, depending on each other, inseparable. In his world, aside from me, there was no one else. On my 18th birthday, Oscar held a plain silver ring and made a forceful confession. The boy held his head high. The usually arrogant, flamboyant face showed a rare hint of shyness, yet he still domineeringly slipped the ring onto my ring finger, brazen to the extreme. Selena, just wait. Once I've saved enough money, I'll marry you. I never even thought about refusing. I said straight out, all right. The atmosphere grew awkward, and it was clear the filming couldn't go on. I smiled at just the right moment. Back then, he was extremely domineering. Other people would at least go through some sort of process when courting someone, but he didn't even give me a chance to refuse. On my 18th birthday, he just tied me down like that. 18 years old. The reporter couldn't help sounding envious. Oscar seemed to recall something as well. His gaze dimmed slightly. After agreeing to Mr. Oscar's proposal, have you ever regretted it? The interview atmosphere had been smooth until this question. I froze for a split second, then quickly reacted. No, I don't regret it. I hid it well. But Oscar still keenly noticed my brief hesitation, probably displeased. He frowned and glanced at me. One last question, answering what everyone is most concerned about. Have you ever thought about divorce, madam? Yes, I answered without hesitation. Both the reporter and Oscar froze at the same time. He pressed his lips together, his expression complicated. I continued, my tone sincere. In fact, most women have had thoughts like this during marriage, haven't they? Sometimes we argue, but more often than not, when you think back to all those beautiful moments from the beginning, how could you possibly bring yourself to be ruthless? Once the video was released, the rumors of discord collapsed on their own. The very few dissenting voices were ignored. When it ended, Oscar looked dazed for a moment. Anna's expression was ugly. She anxiously pulled him back into the office. Just before the door closed, Oscar blocked it with one hand. His eyes were misty and heavy as he called out to me, "Go home and wait for me." Chapter 6. That night, Oscar didn't come home. I saw the photos Anna uploaded to her moments. The two of them went up into the mountains to watch the stars. When Oscar and I were young, we only ever watched the stars in the courtyard of the orphanage. Back then, we would move a bench and sit together. At night, the sound of insects filled the air, and Oscar was full of bold promises. Someday I'll take you to live in a big villa, with a glass ceiling, so you can look at the stars however you want. As he spoke, he waved a fan to drive away the mosquitoes for me. Now his circumstances had improved. He could drive a luxury car and take Anna to a mountainside villa to watch the stars. How romantic. I smiled silently, and took the opportunity to pack my things. But I didn't expect that the next morning, Oscar would rush back. I had thought he would disappear for several more days. Oscar came in dusty and flustered. Seeing me, he seemed to let out a sigh of relief. He collapsed onto the sofa and reached out to hook my hand, then suddenly realized something and withdrew it. I pretended not to see him hiding the ring. Yesterday, as expected, I received Anna's provocative message. In the photo, Oscar had taken off the ring he hadn't removed in years. His fingers interlocked with hers. Sensing my indifference, Oscar, lying on the sofa, grew a little panicked. "Selena, I feel like you're a bit different from before." "How am I different? Why aren't you arguing with me anymore?" I laughed in anger. Why did it have to be this pathetic? Seeing that I still didn't respond, Oscar tugged lightly at my hand and let out a long breath. Come with me to a banquet tomorrow. I paused slightly. Oscar's expression stiffened. After a moment, he spoke again. The public opinion storm hasn't passed yet. Chapter 7. Not only had the public opinion not passed, it was probably going to get even worse. I didn't expect Anna to show up again. She stood in front of me, her tone arrogant. My necklace is missing. Miss Selena, you also went to the restroom just now. Did you see it? All eyes turned toward us. Ears pricked. Some unpleasant memories surged up, my chest tightening uncomfortably. You can call the police. I didn't want to get entangled with her, but she refused to let it go. That was a gift from Oscar. It's very important to me. You were the last one to leave. Think about it. Her voice wasn't quiet, drawing even more attention. Right. The legal wife versus the mistress. How thrilling. Because of Oscar, I was once again on display like a monkey for people to gawk at. Do you have any evidence? On what grounds are you suspecting me? I'm not suspecting you. I just need to check your bag, that's all. From not too far away, Oscar saw everything. He frowned slightly. He walked over, but didn't stop Anna. No, in front of everyone. Being searched like a thief, I couldn't accept it. I hated this feeling of being scrutinized. You don't have the right to open my bag. If you didn't take it, what are you afraid of? Just open it and take a look. Anna grew anxious, her voice rising. The crowd's gaze also turned suspicious because of my refusal. Selena, just let her take a look. Oscar pressed his lips together. If you didn't take it, it won't hurt to show her. I looked up in disbelief. The next second, Anna snatched my bag and roughly rummaged through it. Tissues, lipstick, and miscellaneous items spilled out. Everyone stared without blinking. Even after the bag was emptied, the necklace wasn't found. A complete mess. My face darkened, just as I was about to explode. Wait! Anna screamed suddenly, lifting her head sharply. Before I could react, she had already reached out and yanked the necklace from beneath my dress. Pearls formed a loop, with a stunning pink diamond in the center. This is the one! An uproar erupted across the room. Holy shit! She really is a thief. The legal wife stealing from the mistress? That's low. You don't know the whole story. Someone spoke smugly, revealing gossip. Selena is an orphan. She grew up with Oscar in the same orphanage, poor from childhood. Who knows? Maybe she picked up a habit of petty theft. That's probably why Oscar's family didn't want her in the first place. The whispers pierced my ears like needles. Blood rushed to my head as I spoke, trembling. This is mine. Almost uncontrollably, I looked at Oscar. He gave this to me. One sentence from him would clear my name. Oscar opened his mouth. Anna suddenly shouted. That's impossible. Only 2 of these necklaces were ever made. One of them was given to me by Oscar. My face drained completely of color. Oscar's lips pressed into a straight line. His relaxed posture straightened, a trace of pity flashing through his eyes. So the necklace left in the living room wasn't meant for me. The necklace around my neck suddenly felt scorching hot. My hands trembled as I tried to undo it. Oscar frowned and stepped forward, but Anna easily stopped him. My vision blurred. No matter how I tried, I couldn't unclasp the necklace. I wished I could crawl into a hole and disappear. Suddenly, a cold, low voice cut through the restless crowd, firm and unquestionable. No need to take it off. I gave it to her. A slightly cool hand patted my hand in reassurance. Through the crowd, I saw Oscar's face turn deathly pale in an instant. Chapter 8. I looked up. It was Eric, my senior from university, good-natured, handsome, from a prominent family, once regarded by Oscar as a thorn in his side. That's impossible. Anna refused to let it go, ignoring the stares around him entirely. Eric lowered his gaze. He naturally reached around my neck and turned over the necklace, revealing the engraving on the back. There are Selena's initials here. Holy shit! I saw it clearly. Someone suddenly shouted, then immediately covered their mouth after realizing what they'd said. The atmosphere turned awkward. Oscar's expression was beyond saving. Sharp intakes of breath rose one after another. You cheated on Oscar and found another man. Anna cried out excitedly. Oscar's eyes darkened. his gaze landing on Eric's hand that still hadn't left my shoulder. Eric smiled. What? He's allowed to keep a mistress, but others aren't allowed to abandon the darkness and choose the light? Don't be so hypocritical. Pfft. Someone couldn't hold back a laugh. Anna's face went pale. That was far too blunt. Explain yourself. Oscar stared at me intently, a trace of panic flashing through his eyes. I didn't say anything. Why should I explain? I'd tolerated him for far too long. Now I felt annoyed just looking at him. I turned around, ignoring everyone's astonishment, and prepared to leave. Then I stopped, turned back, and looked at Anna, whose face was flushed red and black with anger. You said the necklace was a gift from Oscar. That makes it marital property. You'd better find it. Otherwise, when the lawyer comes knocking, I don't know if you'll be able to afford the compensation. Chapter 9. After saying that, I didn't spare a glance at Oscar's stunned face. When I picked up my luggage and was about to head out, accompanied by the roar of an engine, Oscar hurriedly slammed the car door, strode over, and blocked my way. Where are you going? His gaze fell on my neatly packed luggage, panic flashing in his eyes. Is that any of your business? I pushed the large suitcase forward, trying to leave, but Oscar tightly grabbed my hand. Say it clearly. He reached out to restrain my belongings. When he saw me let go, ready to leave empty-handed, Oscar completely panicked. I won't stop you. Seeing my expression ease slightly, he continued, but at least say it clearly. 2 minutes later, the two of us sat at opposite ends of the dining table. Oscar looked at the long table and at me, distant and unapproachable, his face darkening. What do you want to ask? I pressed my brows impatiently. Oscar froze for a moment. I must have seemed unfamiliar to him. I didn't expect Anna to show up today. I responded flatly. At this point, I no longer cared whether he expected Anna to appear or not. Oscar's breathing hitched, and he didn't speak again. Silence settled over the room. I stood up. Oscar immediately rose in alertness. Only when he saw me merely walk toward the living room did he sit back down. Until I placed the divorce agreement in front of him, Oscar's face turned completely white. He stared at the document, teeth clenched so tightly it was almost grinding. You're serious about this? Chapter 10. I didn't look at his darkened face. I flipped the agreement open and pointed it out to him. See if you have any objections to the division of property. What objections? The darkness in Oscar's eyes deepened. He raised his hand and tore the agreement to shreds. Paper scraps flew everywhere, scattering across the floor. He looked at me and said word by word, I fucking object to the divorce. Selena, what the hell is wrong with you? He paused. 4 days on end. You didn't call me. You didn't ask when I was coming home. You didn't even ask me about my ring going missing. As he spoke, there was even a trace of grievance in his voice. You don't care about me anymore. And now you actually want to divorce me. What are you making such a fuss about? I took a deep breath, my blood surging uncontrollably. My temper had never been particularly good. Otherwise, things wouldn't have gotten this ugly with Oscar over the years. Letting Anna stay by his side longer and longer. These past 2 days, I had been desperately suppressing my anger, going along with everything he said. What else was he dissatisfied with? Oscar was stunned by my outburst. But he quickly recovered, tugging at the corner of his mouth. As long as you still know how to get angry, that's fine. Hit me, scold me, vent however you want. Once you're done, we'll make up. Impossible. I cut him off, meeting his already reddened eyes. We're finished. I clenched my fists, thinking of the necklace that had caused today's incident. I still couldn't help asking, Oscar, do I fucking owe you something? Chapter 11. Oscar's face went blank for a moment. Then he realized something. She asked me for the necklace. I didn't think much of it and gave it to her. Those days you kept saying things that were half true, half false. I got angry for a moment. So I. His voice grew lower and lower. It doesn't matter. Give it to whoever you want. From now on, whatever you do, I won't care. I won't care about you? Oscar seemed enraged by those words. Then who do you want to care about? He suddenly thought of something. Eric? No wonder you ignored me these past few days. You'd already planned it out, divorce me and then go find him. right? He stood up and walked straight toward me, one hand clamping fiercely around the back of my neck as his lips crushed down on mine. I pushed him away with all my strength, but his bite was vicious, the taste of blood spreading through my mouth. Smack! Oscar held one side of his face, rolling his jaw as he looked at me. Did that feel good? Not satisfied? Then keep hitting. Hit me until you are. Flames surged in his eyes, just like 17-year-old Oscar. Stubborn, hot-tempered, never giving up until he got what he wanted. Back then, his feelings burned so fiercely they seemed ready to melt me. I loved him so much. But what happened later? The way he looked at me grew colder and colder. That blazing passion turned into one expensive, perfunctory gift after another. I accepted them all. He smiled with mockery. Isn't this what you wanted? But in the beginning, it was clearly Oscar, 17-year-old Oscar with nothing, who grabbed my hand and asked, "Selena, what do you like?" "Money. I want lots and lots of money. Children who grow up in orphanages all want money. With money, brothers and sisters can wear new clothes. With money, the matron can finally breathe easier. With money, you can study, go to school, and make something of yourself." Back then, he didn't think there was anything wrong with what I said. He just tightened his grip and spoke with determination. "Then I'll make lots and lots of money. When that happens, will you like me?" Chapter 12. An inexplicable desolation spread through my heart, making it ache. I suddenly tugged at the corner of my lips weakly. "Oscar, back when we had just graduated, you didn't have money either, and didn't I stay with you then?" Oscar froze for a moment, his body going completely rigid. After a long while, he seemed to lose all strength and collapsed into a chair, silently covering his face with his hands. His voice was muffled. "Selena, I really fucking know I was wrong. At the beginning, I got with Anna just to piss you off. But later, I got angry and went crazy with jealousy, exactly as he wanted. At first, he was happy and willing to placate me, not taking Anna seriously at all. But at some point, without knowing when, things changed. His gaze began to linger on Anna, until one time, in a fit of rage, I shoved the innocent-looking Anna to the ground. That day, Oscar didn't look at me even once. He immediately bent down and picked Anna up. There was even a trace of panic on his face. I knew something had changed. I couldn't quite describe how it felt. I had never seen Oscar like that before. As a youth, he had been unruly and unrestrained. After becoming a rich young master, he was even more high-spirited. There was almost nothing he couldn't get. Naturally, he would never show such a despairing expression. In the end, he didn't stop me again. He just sent several messages in quick succession. "I'll cut things off with her. When you're in a better mood, will you come back? If you don't come back, I'll come find you. I stayed silent for half a second, then blocked and deleted him, one clean sweep. Chapter 13. After settling my things at the hotel, I went to the orphanage. The headmistress's hair had already turned gray. She sat in her office, staring at the computer with a deeply worried frown. When she saw me come in, her brows relaxed, and a smile appeared, half scolding, half delighted. "Why are you here again?" Even as she spoke, she still stepped forward and took my hand. I raised an eyebrow slightly. There had been many new children taken in this year. The orphanage's income and expenses were probably unbalanced again. I took out a card from my bag and held it straight out in front of her. "I'll cover the new clothes for the kids." The headmistress froze for a moment, her expression disapproving. "Did you ask Oscar for money again?" She frowned. "I don't want it. Keep it. You've already paid enough over the years." She had probably heard some rumors as well. My relationship with Oscar had worsened year by year, and she thought it was because I kept taking money to the orphanage. I paused, then curled my lips. Not from him, even if it were from him. So what? With all his money, a single bag he buys for Anna costs more than this. The headmistress still waved her hands repeatedly. I forcefully stuffed the card into her pocket. "It's not for you. It's for buying clothes for my younger brothers and sisters." I had seen it when I came in. Many of the kids were still wearing stiff, hardened clothes in the freezing weather. "No, just take it." A cool, calm voice came from the doorway. I looked up. Eric was leaning casually against the doorframe. It was hard to tell how long he'd been listening. When he saw me, he smiled. Want to go for a walk? Chapter 14. After I clearly rejected Eric in college, we had no further contact. Until that year, when Anna entered Oscar's company. My relationship with Oscar deteriorated more and more. And then, Eric appeared. That day, I was standing downstairs at Oscar's company, holding a thermal container. From not too far away, I watched Anna get out of Oscar's car and affectionately hook her arm around his. Oscar lowered his head to look at her, but didn't react. In that moment, I felt as if the blood in my entire body had nearly frozen solid. A biting chill spread through me. My body tilted, and someone caught me amid a sharp cry. When I opened my eyes, Eric was sitting by the bed, propping his face up with one hand. The first thing he said when he saw me awake was, "Weren't you built like an ox before?" My blood surged instantly. If there hadn't still been a needle in the back of my hand, I would have punched him. Chapter 15. What are you thinking? Eric spoke as if casually. I knew what he meant. He was asking how I planned to handle things with Oscar. I tugged at the corner of my lips, my tone light. Divorce. Eric froze for a moment. Then the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. You've thought it through? Can you really let go? Nearly 20 years. Could I let go? I pressed my lips together and answered him seriously. Yes. I don't deny the beauty of the past. But when everything has gone bad, it's time to cut one's losses. When Oscar rushed to the orphanage, this was the scene he saw. He walked up to us, blocking the sunlight in front of me. His lips moved, and something seemed to churn in his dark eyes. The atmosphere stiffened. Eric lifted his gaze to meet Oscar's, a hint of confrontation in the air. I tugged Eric aside to avoid him. Hurt flashed across Oscar's face. He was the first to back down, lowering his eyes and tugging lightly at the corner of my clothes. It's been a long time since you came back. Walk around with me, will you? Chapter 16. I nodded readily. I've always been good at securing funding for the orphanage. Over the past 2 years, little by little, it had been renovated, and now it finally looked somewhat modern. How is it? I couldn't help letting a hint of pride creep into my tone. Oscar stared at the playground facilities in front of him, stunned. At a glance, everything was clean and tidy, with complete and varied equipment. He paused, then suddenly spoke. If we'd had this much back then, we wouldn't have had to fight so much when we were kids. His voice was low, tinged with nostalgia, and it sent a shiver through me. When we were young, Oscar had been small and skinny. I was a girl, but I developed earlier than he did and looked taller. On top of that, I had a sweet mouth and knew how to talk. So visiting aunties and older sisters were always willing to slip me extra snacks, while he was still being excluded by other kids for his aloof personality and overly striking looks. I had already become undefeated within the orphanage. One time, when I found Oscar crying in the corner of the yard because he couldn't get a turn on the slide again, I sighed, walked up to him, and spoke with heroic bravado. Do you want to follow me? Oscar looked up at me, then turned his head away. From 4 to 6 in the afternoon, I can reserve the slide. That was a privilege I earned by sharing my snacks. Oscar's expression wavered, until I spoke again. Follow me, and during that time slot, the slide is yours. Little Oscar hesitated for a while, then nodded proudly. That following lasted more than 10 years. In the entire orphanage, he and I were the closest. When we left the orphanage, Oscar, already much taller, grabbed my sleeve, his tone domineering and arrogant. I'm grown up now. From now on, you follow me. After that, school, dating, marriage. I once thought we would always be good together. Oscar stopped walking. I hadn't slowed down in time and bumped straight into his back. The next second, Oscar turned around abruptly. He looked at me, unease suppressed deep in his eyes. The divorce agreement I had mailed him, he still hadn't signed it. For several days in a row, the housekeeper kept calling me, asking whether I'd come home for meals. It took me a moment to react before explaining clearly, telling her that Oscar and I were getting divorced and there was no need to ask anymore. From the other end of the line came the clear sound of porcelain shattering. After a brief silence, the emotions in Oscar's eyes grew darker and darker. If I never have any contact with Anna again, If I come home early every day, if I work hard to make money and buy you the things you like, can we not get divorced? His voice grew softer and softer as it brushed against my expressionless face. I looked up at him and asked, "How did you meet Anna?" Oscar froze for a moment. After a long pause, he answered in a low voice, as if under interrogation. "When she came to the company to submit her resume, she mentioned you. She said she was your college roommate." He paused. "Originally, with her abilities, she wouldn't have been able to get into the company, but I thought she was your friend." I almost laughed from anger, because the word friend, when applied to Anna and me, was absurd and disgusting. That was how she had gotten close to Oscar. I didn't know what to say anymore. Taking several deep breaths, I suppressed my emotions, practically gritting my teeth to keep the tears from falling. Oscar grew flustered and panicked, reaching out to wipe the tears from my face. I slapped his hand away hard. "Do you know that in college I was falsely accused of stealing, subjected to round after round of investigations by the school, and almost lost the scholarship that was rightfully mine?" My mental state was awful. Oscar didn't speak. He knew. Back then, he had just been taken back by his wealthy father and wanted to handle everything forcefully for me. I refused him with red eyes. On one hand, I didn't want to leave a bad impression on his family. On the other, I was holding on to sheer stubborn pride. I wanted fairness. Under the doubtful and mocking gazes of my classmates, I left class multiple times to go to the police station and give statements. After several rounds of investigation, it turned out that Anna's so-called high-value bag was actually a fake her boyfriend had bought to deceive her. Later, afraid she'd find out, he disposed of it during one of their dates. Anna, careless as she was, lost it, panicked, and suspected me. The truth finally came out. I stared at her coldly. I was innocent. I needed her to clarify the truth in front of the entire school. I didn't deserve to endure those baseless looks of contempt and disdain. That day, Anna stood in front of me, sharp nails pointing at me, her tone casual and dismissive. She said, "You're an orphan who can only finish school with financial aid. Who knows if your hands are clean, even if it wasn't you this time? Who's to say it won't be you next time? You just got lucky this time. Next time, don't." Her eyelids lifted slightly, chin raised, words spilling endlessly from her mouth. The string of reasons snapped. Why? Why? I rushed forward and fought her. She screamed, driving her long, sharp nails into my arm, while I clutched her hair tightly. It took several police officers together to pull us apart. My body was covered in bloody scratches, stinging painfully, while her hair was a mess, a small clump torn out by me. "Did you know all this?" After saying everything, I looked up at him. All the color had drained from Oscar's face. Only at that moment did he truly understand what everything at the banquet had meant. Back then, he had been standing beside Anna, watching me empty my bag, piece by piece, to prove my innocence. I'm sorry, Selena." Oscar's lips trembled. I didn't know. If I had known, I absolutely. As he spoke, his expression slowly froze. As if he had thought of something, his gaze gradually grew dark. I had wanted to tell Oscar about this long ago, but it was already too late. He had already assumed, from the start, that I was biased against Anna. Chapter 17. I knew Anna would run into trouble. I just didn't expect Oscar to go this far. In the quiet corner of the restaurant, Anna's eyes were frantic, her speech incoherent, her sentences tangled. It was obvious she hadn't been doing well lately. "Selena, how did Oscar find out? Are you jealous of how well he treats me? So you're trying to ruin our relationship?" I laughed. Their relationship? What relationship did they even have? It was nothing more than mutual exploitation. That smile stabbed straight into Anna's eyes. She suddenly looked up at me. "Don't get smug. Oscar only feels guilty toward you when he. She couldn't finish the sentence. She couldn't even find a reason to deceive herself anymore. Oscar had acted swiftly and ruthlessly. He fired her without hesitation. For years, Anna had relied on Oscar's influence to act arrogantly in the company. She did her job poorly and used the opportunity to line her own pockets. Oscar, in the name of the company, sued her. She couldn't repay the money, and prison was unavoidable. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Anna's expression suddenly changed and tears fell. She grabbed my hand, her voice pleading. Selena, I'm begging you. I really am. Can you explain things clearly to Oscar for me? You're capable, you'll be fine in the future no matter what. But I'm different. It wasn't easy for me to get into such a good company. I don't want to leave. Oscar will believe you. Just go explain it to him. I coldly brushed her hand away and cut her off. No chance. Her face stiffened. I looked at her deeply, striking while she was down. Do you remember what I told you, that the money you spent these past years counts as marital property? What you said that day was heard by everyone. The receipts shouldn't be hard to find. Think carefully about where that necklace went. If it's really gone, that's going to be troublesome. Anna's face turned ashen. She collapsed onto the sofa behind her, terror filling her eyes. She was used to spending lavishly. Where would the money come from to fill that hole? I found it hard to feel any sympathy. Back then, what she did wasn't only directed at me, a sophomore girl, a female student working part-time in the cafeteria, a class officer whose father had lost his ability to work. That mouth of hers, how many people had she slandered behind their backs? How many introverted, sensitive girls had been dragged into misery, left awake all night in anxiety, just because of one sentence from her? Chapter 18. I don't know how Oscar found out where I was. When I stepped outside and saw him, I froze. He stood by the car, his brown coat swaying in the wind, his figure gaunt, his deep-set eyes were hidden beneath messy bangs, his expression unreadable. My indifference seemed to throw him off. Oscar pressed his lips together tightly. Selena, he spoke, but the words caught in his throat the next second. His face stiffened, his feet rooted to the ground, his gaze locked in this direction. I looked up in surprise. I didn't know when Eric had appeared. He naturally draped his coat over my shoulders. Oscar clearly misunderstood. His eyes were fixed on Eric's hand resting on my shoulder. Let's go. I paused for a moment, ignoring the scorching gaze behind me. I lifted my foot, but the next second, my hand was yanked hard. Proud as Oscar was, he actually choked up in front of Eric. Wait. His eyes were already red. Feeling the surrounding stares, I helplessly stopped. Oscar rummaged frantically inside his coat. Finally, he held out a diamond-studded necklace toward me. I didn't toy with you, Selena. If I said it was for you, it was for you. If it was for you, it was the best. I remained silent. You don't want it? Oscar's voice actually trembled. To this extent? Do you hate me that much? That you won't even take what you used to like most? It wasn't exactly that. It just felt uncomfortable. I lowered my eyes. In the end, I still didn't take the necklace. As I left, Oscar clenched his teeth, gripping the necklace tightly, as if he no longer had the strength even to look up. Chapter 19. I don't know if it was just Oscar's personality. The wedding caused a huge uproar, and the divorce was no less dramatic. When he handed me the property division agreement, I was stunned. So many zeros. Even someone as worldly as me was left speechless. The lawyer stuttered when he saw it. He said Oscar had given me almost half of his entire fortune. As for assets that were hard to divide, he compensated me through other forms of dividends. It was said his father was so angry he nearly vomited blood. Yet there was nothing he could do about it. Back then, even beating Oscar with a stick couldn't make him submit. Now that Oscar had grown wings, there was even less anyone could do. Oscar himself, however, seemed completely unbothered, his expression calm throughout. When everything was over, Oscar left quickly, as if something were chasing him. His steps were hurried. My feelings were complicated. Later, that evening at the welfare home, when Eric brought it up during dinner, he watched my expression with an unreadable look. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask him about the identical necklace. Some things didn't need to be spelled out. My entanglement with Oscar had nearly drained all my emotions. I had no intention of revisiting it. The director mother was getting old. I still had many matters to take care of. After all, I was the boss of the welfare home.